Welcome back to Jack English Learning Podcast. I'm Jack, and today we are talking about why having too many hobbies isn't a flaw, but actually a psychological advantage for the future of work.
I'm Sarah, and we're diving into the psychology of the M-shaped person. If you stay until the end, you won't need to look this topic up again because we'll cover it in full detail.
So before we get into, all the shapes and letters and what they mean for our potential, I think I have to start with a bit of a confession.
Oh, go on.
It's a messy one. I currently have, and I'm not exaggerating, probably 50 tabs open in my browser.
Okay.
But it's not just on my laptop. It feels like I have 50 tabs open inside my brain.
50 sounds, honestly, for the kind of person we're talking about today, that might even be a calm Tuesday.
It really doesn't feel calm. It feels like intellectual whiplash, I'll have one tab open on how to bake the perfect sourdough starter.
A classic.
Yeah, that classic pandemic hobby I just never managed to drop. Then, right next to it, another tab on the geopolitical history of the Silk Road.
That's quite a jump.
And then right next to that, I'm like halfway through a tutorial on Python coding. And if I'm being honest, some days it just feels like I'm flailing.
Flailing how?
Like I'm just distracted. Or worse, that I'm shallow.
Shallow. That's a strong word.
Yeah. Like I'm dipping my toes in 10 different pools, but I'm never actually learning how to swim in any of them.
That feeling you're describing, that specific flavor of anxiety, it's incredibly common.
It really is.
Oh, absolutely. In the psychology of work, we see this all the time, and it's usually tied to this deep, almost existential sense of shame.
Shame is exactly the right word for it.
People genuinely feel like quitters, or that they're scatterbrained. And it's because society has this incredibly heavy pressure, right? It tells us from a very young age to pick a lane. And the subtext is always, if you aren't specializing, you're failing.
Exactly. It's that old jack of all trades, master of none insult that just plays on a loop in your head.
Right.
But the research we're looking at today, it suggests that this mindset, this, jumping from topic to topic, it might actually be the exact opposite of a failure.
It might be an evolutionary adaptation.
An adaptation to the modern economy, which is just a wild thought.
It is. The core premise we're exploring today is that the world is literally shifting beneath our feet. We are moving away from an economy that values the hyper-specialist.
The I-shaped person.
The I-shaped person, yes.
Cool.
And we're moving toward a future that places a massive premium on people with multiple depths. The M-shaped person.
Before we unpack that, because I want to get deep into the alphabet soup here, I want to ask you, the listener, something directly. I really want you to pause and answer this honestly for yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much guilt do you feel when you switch from one interest to another? When you put the guitar down to pick up the coding book, or you close the history documentary to watch a video on gardening. What's that number?
That guilt, it is a real psychological weight. It's the burden of what economists call opportunity cost. And by the end of this deep dive, we really hope to lift that weight off your shoulders completely. Okay,
so let's get into the definitions. We're throwing around these letters, M-shaped, I-shaped, T-shaped. What are we actually talking about here?
It's a way of visualizing human capital, kind of shorthand for what you bring to the table, skill-wise.
Okay.
The traditional model, the one that, the 20th century factory model really loved and optimized for, that is the I-shaped person.
Right. So just picture the letter I. It's just one tall, straight, vertical line.
Exactly. And that vertical line represents deep, singular expertise in one single domain.
So like a database administrator.
A perfect example. Someone who knows absolutely everything there is to know about Oracle databases. They know the code, the history, the bugs, the patches.
For deep knowledge.
Incredibly deep. But maybe they don't know much about marketing or product design or, user psychology. They are deep, but they are also very narrow.
And to be fair, that's great for stability in some cases, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I need open heart surgery, I want an I-shaped heart surgeon.
Of course.
I don't want a guy who dabbles in surgery but also runs a bakery and writes poetry on the side.
No, you want the person who has done nothing but hearts all day, every day for 30 years.
Exactly.
And in those stable, predictable environments, the I is king. It's the Fordist model. You put a person on the assembly line, they learn to turn one specific wrench perfectly, and the entire system runs with maximum efficiency.
But things started to change.
They did. As the corporate world got a bit more complex, say in the 90s and 2000s, we started hearing about the T-shaped person.
This was a big buzzword for a while.
It was. Companies like IDEO and McKinsey really popularized it.
So that's the vertical line of depth, but now it has a horizontal bar across the top.
Yes, and that horizontal bar represents breadth. It's usually soft skills, empathy, the ability to collaborate, communication.
So you're still an expert, but you can talk to other people.
Basically, yes. A T-shaped person is still a deep expert in one thing, let's say engineering, but they can have a productive conversation with the marketing team without getting confused or, being dismissive of their ideas.
They have that collaborative connective tissue.
A great way to put it. But now the research is suggesting that even T isn't enough anymore. Now we need to be an M.
Or sometimes they call it comb-shaped, which I have to say sounds a bit less sexy.
It definitely does. Let's stick with M. The M is the evolution. Instead of just one vertical leg of depth, you have multiple.
Okay, like the letter M. It has these different pillars.
Those pillars represent deep expertise in 2, 3, or even 4 different, and this is key, distinct domains.
So this isn't just someone who is a good engineer and also a nice guy. This is something more.
Much more. This is the product designer who can also write production-level Python code, and on top of that, maybe understands behavioral psychology on a professional level. It's multiple depths, and this distinction is absolutely crucial because of the kind of environment we are all living and working in now.
This brings us to that concept of kind versus wicked learning environments. I saw this in the research notes, and it blew my mind.
It's a game-changing framework. It really explains why the pure I-shaped specialist is starting to feel so much anxiety today.
So let's break it down. An I-shaped person thrives in what's called a kind learning environment.
And we need to clarify here. Kind doesn't mean everyone is nice and polite to each other.
No, it means the rules are kind. The system itself is transparent.
Correct. In a kind environment, patterns repeat predictably. The feedback you get is immediate and it's accurate. Think of chess or golf.
Golf is a perfect example. The rules of golf haven't really changed much in 100 years.
Not at all.
If you hit the ball and it slices into the trees, you know immediately. I messed up my swing. The feedback is instant.
And it's clear.
It's perfectly clear. If you practice putting for 10,000 hours, you will get better. The relationship between cause and effect is totally unambiguous.
But the modern economy, the world of tech startups, of global markets, of AI disruption, that is not a game of golf.
No, that is a wicked learning environment.
Wicked meaning chaotic, messy.
Messy, yes, but more than that. Wicked means the rules themselves are unclear. They change constantly, and sometimes the feedback you get is delayed by years, or it's just plain wrong.
In a wicked environment, patterns don't repeat perfectly. The strategy that worked in 2020 might absolutely destroy your business in 2024.
It's like being a firefighter, or trying to predict the stock market, or, I don't know, trying to figure out the YouTube algorithm.
Exactly. And in a wicked environment, the specialist is actually at a disadvantage.
Why is that?
Because they only have one lens, they have one hammer, so every single problem looks like a nail. But the M-shaped person, they thrive in this chaos.
Oh, they can pull from different toolkits.
Precisely. They can synthesize information from completely different fields to navigate the uncertainty. They don't just follow the rules, they connect dots that other people don't even see are on the same page.
But I have to push back a little here. I mean, getting to that point, getting to be M-shaped, where you have multiple pillars to stand on, that journey is really painful.
It can be.
There's a very specific type of anxiety that comes with having all these interests before you've mastered any of them. It just feels like you're drowning in options.
This is what we call the scanner's dilemma.
Scanner being another term for these people, right? These multipotentialites are always scanning the horizon for the next new thing.
Yes. And the dilemma is paralysis by choice. But here is the key psychological insight. It's not that these people are lazy, it's actually that they care too much.
What do you mean?
The anxiety comes from this deep, often unconscious realization that choosing one path, say, deciding to finally commit and become a lawyer, means you have to mourn the death of all the other possible versions of you.
Whoa, okay, that got dark fast.
It is dark. It's a form of existential grief. You are literally mourning the version of you that was a chef, the version of you that was a pilot, the version that was a novelist living in a cabin in the woods.
That is heavy. It's mourning the unlived lives. I read a quote once, "To choose is to lose."
That's it, exactly. And that potential for grief causes people to freeze. They stay in what we call the dash-shaped zone.
Just a horizontal line.
Just a horizontal line, dabbling in everything but never going deep. Because going deep feels like closing a door forever.
And if you never close a door, you never have to say goodbye to those other potential selves.
Right. But you also never build a pillar. You never build the expertise that gives you stability and value.
So I want you, the listener, to really think about that. Do you feel safer knowing one thing absolutely perfectly, or knowing 3 things good enough to be dangerous? Which one of those actually calms your anxiety?
It's a tricky question because society tells you one thing, but your own internal psychology might be screaming another.
It really is a question of risk tolerance. The specialist feels safe because they have tenure, they have their lane. The generalist feels safe because they have options, they can pivot.
And the M-shaped approach offers a kind of solution to this grief. You don't have to close the doors forever, you just have to build the rooms one at a time.
Before we get to the how, because I know people were probably screaming, okay, but how do I actually do this? I want to talk more about the why.
Okay.
Because having these multiple deep interests isn't just about being an interesting person at a cocktail party. It gives you actual cognitive superpowers.
It really does. And superpower isn't an exaggeration here in a psychological sense. The first big one is what we call idea synthesis.
This is the engine of all innovation, right?
Pretty much. Real innovation rarely comes from digging deeper and deeper into the same hole that everyone else is already digging in.
You just find more of the same stuff.
Right. If you are a battery engineer and you only read battery engineering journals, you will make incremental improvements. Maybe you'll get 5% better this year, but real disruption.
That comes from somewhere else.
That comes from digging 2 completely different holes and finding a secret tunnel that connects them underground.
I love that visual. It reminds me of the concept of far transfer. This was in the cognitive science papers we looked at, and I really want to break it down because it sounds a bit technical.
It's the core mechanism behind why M-shaped people succeed. So most education, most corporate training, it's based on near transfer.
Okay, what's that?
That's taking a skill you learned in one specific situation and applying it to a very, very similar situation.
Like, if I learned to drive a Ford, I can probably figure out how to drive a Toyota pretty quickly.
Exactly. It's different, but the mechanics are 90% the same. That is near transfer. And specialists are fantastic at this.
But M-shaped people do something else.
They specialize in far transfer. That's taking a principle or a mental model from a completely unrelated field like, say, architecture, and applying it to a problem in a totally different field, like software code.
The sources mentioned a great example that I want to generalize here. Let's think of a musician, I don't know, a heavy metal drummer, who decides to become a commercial airline pilot.
Okay, those seem like 2 completely unrelated worlds.
Totally. One is creative, loud, maybe a little chaotic. The other is all about rigid checklists, silence in the cockpit, safety above all else.
Polar opposites.
But the M-shaped mind finds the connection. The musician who becomes a pilot might take the rigorous discipline of aviation flight checks, that whole pre-flight safety routine.
And apply it to what?
To the logistics of managing a touring band.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right, because usually rock and roll tours are a logistical mess. Gear gets lost, people are late, things break.
Total chaos.
But this person comes in and says, wait a minute, why don't we have a pre-show checklist for the stage gear, just like we have a pre-flight checklist for the plane?
And suddenly, the chaos of the tour is tamed by a principle from aviation.
That is far transfer. You solved a music industry problem with a pilot's solution.
And a pure musician might never think of that system because, that's not how we do things in rock and roll.
And a pure pilot would never be on tour in the first place. It's the intersection of the 2 pillars that creates the magic.
There's another superpower here too, which is related. It's the beginner's mindset that leads to rapid learning.
This one feels counterintuitive. You'd think the person who switches topics all the time would be a slow learner because they're always starting over from square one.
Actually, it's often the opposite. M-shaped people are frequently much faster at reaching, say, 80% competency in a new skill than a specialist would be.
Why is that? Doesn't it take 10,000 hours to master something?
To master it to 100%, to be in the top 0.1% of the world, maybe. But to get to that 80% good enough level, M-shaped people are faster for 2 key reasons.
Okay.
First, they lack what you could call ego fragility.
Ego fragility.
Think about it. An expert who has spent 20 years being the smartest person in the room, they're often terrified of looking stupid.
Their whole identity is tied up in being the expert.
Exactly. So they hesitate to try new technologies or new methods because they don't want to be a beginner again. It threatens their sense of self.
But the scanner, the M-shaped person,
Yeah.
we are professional beginners. I mean, I look stupid at least once a week trying something new. I'm used to it.
You are comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing. You have developed learning how to learn as a meta skill.
That's the first reason. What's the second?
The second is that you have more associative hooks. You recognize patterns across domains. You can say, oh, learning this new coding language, it's actually structurally similar to how I learned French grammar in high school.
So you're not starting from a blank map.
Never. You map the new territory faster because you have a whole library of other maps in your head to compare it to.
I want to throw another question out to the listener right now. I want you to pause and think of your two weirdest, most unrelated hobbies.
This is a fun one.
Maybe it's gardening and heavy metal music. Maybe it's, I don't know, accounting and watercolor painting. Can you find one way, just one single way, that they actually overlap or inform each other? Pause and really try to connect them.
That exercise right there is essentially practicing far transfer. You are actively training your brain to become more M-shaped.
And if this discussion is resonating with you, if you're sitting there realizing you aren't broken, you're just M-shaped, then please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're using.
We have a lot more psychology deep dives coming up that tackle these exact kinds of workplace and life dynamics.
And if you hit that like button, it really does help the algorithm find other scanners out there who might be struggling with that same guilt we talked about at the beginning.
Okay, so we have to talk about the elephant in the room now.
Or maybe the robot in the room.
The robot in the room.
Yep.
AI.
Right.
The AI factor is probably the single biggest driver behind why being M-shaped is moving from a nice-to-have to an absolute economic survival strategy.
It feels like everyone, everywhere, is terrified that AI is going to take their jobs.
And the research suggests that for some people, that fear is unfortunately very justified. But the key question is who specifically should be worried?
And the answer depends on your shape.
It absolutely depends on your shape. If you are strictly I-shaped, if you have only one deep pillar of expertise, AI is a significant and direct threat.
Because AI is basically the ultimate specialist.
It is the ultimate I-shaped worker. Think about how large language models work. They ingest and process massive amounts of data in one specific domain to predict the next word or generate an answer.
It can do one thing incredibly well.
And incredibly fast. AI can write code faster than a human. It can audit financial records faster than a human. It can draft a complex legal brief in seconds.
So if your entire value proposition to the economy is I can perform this one specific technical task very, very well,
you are now in direct competition with an algorithm that doesn't sleep, doesn't ask for a raise, and costs pennies on the dollar to run.
And that creates a massive identity crisis,
Yeah.
right? If your entire self-worth is tied to I'm the best coder in this building, and then a piece of software comes along and is just better than you. That's a huge psychological blow to the ego.
It's devastating. But this is exactly where the safety of the M comes in, because for all its power, AI struggles with context. It struggles with ambiguity.
And it absolutely fails at bridging the gap between human tribes.
That's a great way to put it. This is the concept of boundary spanning.
Okay, break that down for us.
In any reasonably sized company, you have silos. The engineering team lives in one silo, the design team lives in another, the marketing team lives in a third.
And they all speak different languages.
They really do. They have different values, different priorities, different metrics for success.
The engineers care about efficiency, clean code, stability. The designers care about the user experience, aesthetics, beauty. The marketers care about the story, the brand, the message.
Now, AI cannot mediate the inevitable argument between those three teams. AI cannot understand the emotional subtext of why the lead engineer is so resistant to implementing a new design feature. It doesn't get the human element.
But an M-shaped person can.
An M-shaped person, someone who has a pillar in engineering and a pillar in design, can act as the translator, the human bridge.
And you're not just translating words like from pixel perfect to back-end query, you're translating values.
You are. You can go to the engineer and say, look, I know this code is going to be ugly to write and it's not efficient, I get it. But here is why it matters for the user's psychology. And you can say it in a way the engineer actually respects, because you also know how to code. You have credibility in both worlds.
So that requires a really high emotional intelligence, or EQ.
And that is the human mode. That is the thing that is, for now, unautomatable. The more you can synthesize disparate fields and translate between them, the safer you are.
So another question for you, the listener. If a robot, an AI, took over 80% of your technical tasks tomorrow, all the spreadsheet filling, the basic coding, the email sorting, what uniquely human skill would you have left to offer?
Would it be empathy? Would it be strategy? Would it be that synthesis we're talking about? That question really defines your value in this coming M-shaped future.
Let's try to ground this with a story. I want to introduce a little mini case study. Let's talk about a person we'll call Alex.
Okay. Alex is a composite, of course, of many people we see in the research on this topic.
Alex is 30 years old. And if you look at his resume, to a traditional recruiter, it looks like an absolute disaster zone.
A collection of red flags.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He spent 2 years in law school, did really well, was on track, and then he dropped out.
Okay.
Then he spent the next 3 years learning to code and working as a software developer at a tech startup. But he got bored there, so he left.
Another quit.
Right. Then he started a sourdough bakery during the pandemic, which did okay for a while. And now he's completely obsessed with 3D printing and small-scale manufacturing.
And I'm guessing Alex probably feels terrible about himself.
He does. He feels like a total failure because he has no career ladder to show for his 30s. He looks at his friends who stayed in law, and they're making partner now. They have the title, the salary, the clear path.
And Alex feels like he has no grit.
Yes. He thinks he just quits whenever things get hard or boring.
This is such a classic and tragic misinterpretation of his own psychology. Alex isn't quitting.
What's he doing?
He's graduating.
I love that reframe. Graduating. Explain that.
We need to talk about the psychology of boredom for an M-shaped person. For a specialist, sure, boredom can often be a sign of disengagement or laziness. But for a scanner, a multipotentialite like Alex, boredom is a data point.
A signal.
It is a signal from your brain, and that signal is saying, I have extracted the necessary pattern from this field, the learning curve has now flattened out. Mission accomplished, time to move on.
So when Alex got bored of law, it wasn't because he couldn't hack it.
Not at all. It was because his brain had successfully learned the logic of the legal system, and it was now hungry for a new system to decode.
He built a legal pillar.
Exactly. And that pillar didn't just disappear because he stopped practicing law. It is still there. It's part of his foundation. Then he went and built a coding pillar. Now he's building a manufacturing pillar.
Well, here's the challenge, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second.
Please do.
Alex is broke. You can't pay rent with metaphorical pillars of half-finished projects.
Yeah.
He's 30 years old, and he feels like he's starting over again. This is the real practical fear that people have.
And it is an incredibly valid fear. This is where we have to make a crucial distinction between strategic M-shaping and aimless dash shaping.
Dash shaping, like just the horizontal line.
Exactly. Dash shaping is just dabbling. It's reading one book on a topic and then moving on. That doesn't build a pillar. That doesn't make you employable.
M-shaping implies you actually go deep enough to be dangerous.
You have to get good enough. You don't need to be in the top 1% of the world in every field, but you do need to get into the top, say, 20, 25%. You need to become competent enough that someone would pay you for that skill.
So what does Alex do?
Alex needs to stop seeing his skills as separate failures and start using them in combination. He shouldn't just be a 3D printing guy.
He should be.
He should be the 3D printing guy who deeply understands intellectual property law because of his law school background, and who can also write his own custom firmware for his machines because of his coding background.
Boom. Now that is a unique value proposition. There's probably nobody else in his city with that specific combination of skills.
Exactly. That intersection of pillars is where the money is. That's where the value is.
But, I mean, trying to keep all these balls in the air at once must be exhausting. We talked about my 50 tabs earlier. There has to be a real risk of burnout here.
There is. And it's a specific type of burnout we call frenetic burnout.
Frenetic. That sounds energetic.
It starts out very energetic. It's driven by high ambition. It's the person who says, this week I'm going to learn Spanish and karate and start my coding boot camp.
I feel attacked.
It leads to what psychologists call role ambiguity and work overload. You're trying to be 3 different people at once, and your brain just runs out of RAM.
And then what happens?
Eventually, that boundless enthusiasm curdles into apathy. You just crash and burn out.
So what is the solution? How do we build the M without bringing down the entire house?
The solution is a concept called serial mastery.
Serial, as in one after the other, not all at once.
Yes. You do not build 3 pillars simultaneously. That is structurally and cognitively impossible for most people. You build them in seasons.
How long is a season?
It varies from person to person and skill to skill, but a good rule of thumb is anywhere from 6 to 18 months.
And in that season?
For that period, you focus intensely on one pillar, you go deep, you let your other interests simmer on the back burner. They can be your shadow pillars for now.
So you don't ignore them completely?
No, you can still read a book about them on the weekend or watch a documentary, but your primary cognitive load, your main effort, is dedicated to building that one main pillar.
So using our friend Alex as an example, he should have spent 18 months just crushing the coding, getting really, really good at it.
Yes. And then once that skill is internalized and becomes second nature, he has freed up the brain space to shift his primary focus to the bakery or to 3D printing.
That makes so much sense. It satisfies both needs.
Exactly. It satisfies the deep need for depth, which gives you competence and income, and it satisfies the need for breadth and novelty, but it intelligently spreads them out over time to protect your cognitive resources.
I want to ask the listener again. Are you trying to build 3 pillars at once right now? Are you trying to get fit, learn a new language, and start a side business all in the same month?
And what if you gave yourself permission to put 2 of those on a shelf for just 6 months?
Just imagine that. How much relief would you feel?
That feeling of relief is the sign that you are moving from manic, burnout-inducing dabbling to strategic, sustainable M-shaping.
Okay, now let's get really practical about the social side of this, because even if you accept this M-shaped identity for yourself, you still have to explain it to other people.
Oh, yes. Especially skeptical recruiters and concerned family members.
Let's do a little role play. I think this would be helpful. M-shaped people often face a lot of skepticism. Parents ask, when are you going to settle down and pick a real career? Recruiters look at the resume and just see job hopping and think, unreliable.
Okay, sounds good. I'll be the skeptical recruiter. You be the M-shaped candidate trying to defend your nonlinear path.
All right, I'm ready.
So I'm looking at your resume here. I see you did marketing for a year, then you switched to coding for 2 years, and now you're applying for a sales role. It really looks like you don't know what you want. We're looking for someone who is committed.
That's a fair observation. But actually, I see it differently. Because I've written code, I understand the product limitations that the developers are dealing with on a deep level. And because I've done marketing, I know how to sell that product to customers without overpromising features that don't actually exist. My background allows me to be the bridge between your dev team and your sales team, preventing the kind of friction and miscommunication that usually costs companies a lot of money. I'm not confused, I'm a translator.
Okay, very good. So that is a power move. You didn't get defensive. You reframed the perceived weakness as a unique and valuable asset.
You showed how your breadth solves a specific business problem they probably have.
Exactly. You connected the dots for them.
It feels good to say that, actually. It feels empowering. But I think the harder conversation for many of us is the one we have with ourselves.
The internal critic, that voice is often the harshest.
Yeah, let's do that one now. I'll be the nasty, critical voice in my own head. You be the voice of self-compassion.
Okay, let's hear it.
Ugh, you're quitting again. You never finish anything. You just wasted 2 whole years on this project and now you're bored with it. You're just lazy and undisciplined.
I'm not quitting. I am graduating. I have reached the point of diminishing returns here. I have learned what I came here to learn. I've extracted the value. And now I am taking this new knowledge to cross-pollinate with my next interest. I am building a unique combination of skills that takes time to reveal its true power.
Wow. That is a much kinder and probably a much more accurate way to talk to yourself.
It's about treating your life as a portfolio of assets, not a single linear train track where any deviation is a failure.
Let's give the listener some concrete tools to take away. We have the philosophy, we have the mindset shift, but how do we actually live this M-shaped life day to day?
Okay. Tool number 1 is something I love. We call it the Einstein approach.
Named after Albert Einstein, obviously.
Yes. Most people forget that before he was the world's most famous physicist, he worked a day job as a patent clerk in Switzerland.
A boring bureaucratic government job.
Exactly. But it was what you might call a good enough job. It paid the bills, it was stable, and crucially, it had a low cognitive load. When he went home at 5 p.m., he didn't have to keep thinking about patent applications.
Which left his brain fresh and free to invent the theory of relativity in his spare time.
Precisely. The application for us is this. Don't demand that your one job fulfill all of your M-shaped needs and passions. That is a recipe for constant disappointment.
It's okay to get a boring job to fund your exciting pillars.
It's more than okay. It's a brilliant strategy. You can be an accountant by day and a heavy metal guitarist by night. The accounting job funds the guitars and the rehearsal space.
And the stability of the accounting job allows the creativity to flourish without the crushing pressure of, I must write a hit song this month or I can't eat.
Right. Then there's tool number 2, which is kind of the opposite approach. We can call it the group hug or the slash career.
The group hug.
Finding a single role that hugs all your interests together, a role that requires you to wear many different hats.
Working at a startup is the classic example here.
It is. In a 5-person startup, you might be the head of marketing, but you also plunge the toilet, negotiate with investors, and design the website. For an M-shaped person, this chaos is actually incredibly stimulating. You get to use all your pillars every single day.
In the slash career.
That's where you're literally a teacher, musician, coder. You have 3 distinct part-time jobs or streams of income. That works for people who need a high degree of variety on a daily or weekly basis.
Okay, tool number 3 is about memory. This is a big source of anxiety for scanners. We learn so many things, but then we forget them. Why did I spend all that time learning botany if I can't even remember the Latin names anymore?
This is where you need to externalize your memory. You need a system. Something like a Zettelkasten or a second brain.
A Zettelkasten is basically a fancy note-taking system, right?
At its core, yes. It's a method of linking ideas together. The key is that you don't just copy what you learn. You have to rewrite it in your own words, on a single note, and then you deliberately think, what other notes does this connect to?
So if I learn about, guitar hydraulics today, I write a short note about it.
Yes, and you might not need that piece of information for 5 years. But in 5 years, when you're suddenly trying to design a new type of door hinge for your 3D printing business, you might search your notes for hydraulics, and boom, there is that idea, ready to be cross-pollinated.
It reduces the anxiety of forgetting because you know the knowledge is safe somewhere.
You can download that pillar back into your working memory later without having to relearn it from scratch. It frees up your mental RAM to focus on the current pillar you're building.
I love that. It's like backing up your brain's hard drive so you can clear space for new software installs.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap this up, we absolutely need to bust some common myths. There's some really persistent, unhelpful ideas out there about having too many interests.
Let's do it. Myth versus fact.
Okay, first myth, the big one. Jack of all trades, master of none. We hear it all the time. It's always used as an insult.
Fact. The full original quote is actually, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Wait, are you serious?
Completely serious. The original intent of the phrase, back in the day, was to praise versatility. It was an acknowledgement that being able to do many things reasonably well is often more useful in a complex world than being hyper-specialized in just one thing.
So we culturally amputated the end of the quote to shame generalists.
We did. We've been using it completely wrong for centuries.
That is mind-blowing.
Oh.
Okay, next myth.
Go for it.
Myth. You need to monetize every single hobby. If you're good at knitting, you must open an Etsy store. If you're good at baking, you must sell cupcakes at the farmer's market.
Fact. Trying to monetize everything is the fastest way to kill your joy and induce burnout. Some pillars need to be just for mental surplus or for pure, unstructured play.
They fuel the other pillars.
They refuel your energy for the pillars that do make money. You need to have hobbies that are just for you, where the output doesn't have to be efficient or optimized or profitable.
It's giving yourself permission to just be bad at something for fun or to be good at it completely in private.
Absolutely. Not everything is for public consumption or for sale.
This has been a massive deep dive. I have to say, I feel so much better about my 50 browser tabs already.
Good. That was the goal. Let's recap the main, most important points for the listener to take away.
Okay. Point number 1. The future belongs to those who can connect the dots. The M-shaped people, not just those who dig one deep hole. The world is wicked, and synthesis is the ultimate survival skill.
Point number 2. Boredom is a data point, not a character flaw. For a scanner, it is a positive signal that tells you when you have peaked in your learning and it's time to strategically pivot to the next pillar.
And number 3, you do not have to build all of your pillars at once. Use serial mastery. Focus on one thing for a season, go deep, and then shift. Protect your cognitive load at all costs.
And we have a challenge for you this week, a small action step. We want you to identify your primary pillar, that's the one that's paying the bills right now, and your shadow pillar.
The shadow pillar being the one you're secretly curious about or just doing on the side for fun.
Yes. And just spend 30 minutes this week actively trying to find a connection between them. How does one inform the other? How could they work together? Write it down.
If this episode helped you feel less broken and more understood, if you felt that little sigh of relief at any point, please take a second to like this episode. It really helps other scanners and M-shaped people find us.
And of course, subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of work, creativity, and life.
Next time, we're going to discuss why that feeling of imposter syndrome might actually be a counterintuitive sign of high intelligence.
You will not want to miss that one.
See you next time.
See you next time.